Hey, Bass Geek here, and today I'm going to give you my top 5 favorite winter baits. So wintertime fishing, guys, most of the time I consider that when the water temperature is below that 51. Some people consider it 55, but 55 to 51 is when I really consider the wintertime bite coming into play. Seems like the 51 is just the magic number for me, especially on the lakes that I fish with what is one of my favorite baits. It really comes into play with that. That's the number 1. We'll talk about that when we get to it. All right, so number 5 is, of course, and I know you're going to be surprised that it's this low, but it's the swim bait. So one of the places that I'm going to target with a swim bait this time of year is going to be a bluff wall. I generally like to find a bluff that comes out to a long point. It seems to be a pathway where they'll move from the steep bluff to the long point to feed on shad. So with a swim bait, another place that I'll target, just like most of the other baits, are going to be long tapering points that come way out into the water. And generally what I'm going to do is I'm going to locate the bass with my sonar out here, and then I'm going to back off of them. I'm going to make long casts. Now sometimes they can sit right off the edge of the point, and you can come out and cast out. And as always, we're going to let it sink to the bottom, and we're just going to reel it back super slow. So even slower than you would reel it during the summer. It is going to be painfully slow as you reel it back. I mean, honestly, not even enough to really probably get the tail moving, or just barely have that tail moving. Now, another place that I'm going to really look for with the swim bait, and I'm actually going to look for these places with the damiki rig, on flats, I'm going to actually find creek channels or ditches. Number 4 on my list is a suspending jerkbait. Now, I tend to go back between 3 different jerkbaits. One is the mega bass, especially if I'm fishing for smallmouth. Really hard to beat this color. If you don't want to spend that much money on mega bass, you can always go, I believe, Lucky Strike. Rick Clunn makes one that looks almost like it. Same mold, I believe Mega Bass sold the mold, and they make them, you know, few slight differences in the casting system and the bearings and the knocking sound that's inside. Another one is the Rapalas, the Shadow Wraps. I'm a big fan of those in the winter, and probably my favorite jerkbait is the good old Smithwick Suspending Rogue. It seems to catch more bass on a jerkbait for me during the winter time, during the cooler months, than anything else I can tie on. So one of the places I like to target during the winter time, steep bluff walls. Get in tight to the bank, make a long cast, crank it down a couple times. Because I fish a lot of clear water, I like to fish a deeper diving bait. And then one of the things you can start out doing is just twitch, pause. I'm going to count to 3. Now if I don't get any bites there after a while, I'm going to extend that pause. I'm going to count to 4. I'm going to go twitch, pause. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000. And I'm going to change that up. Especially during the winter time, the pause is the most important part of the presentation. So again, a long tapering point is where I'm going to fish this. I'm going to fish it super slow. I'm going to make a cast as far as I can get. I'm going to give it a few cranks to get it down to the depth that I want. And then I'm going to give it a couple of twitches, make sure I'm giving that slack line back to it. Give it another couple of twitches, giving that slack line back to it. And I'm counting to 3. Now, if I know that they're biting, or I really feel like they're biting on a jerk bait, I'm going to leave that bait down there longer and longer. I'm going to make those pauses longer and longer. I'm going to count them out. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. If I'm not getting bit, I'm going to count it to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So again, the pause is the key. And during the wintertime, guys, electronics is the key. Don't fish dead water. Make sure you're locating those bass and make sure you're giving them time to eat this bait. Let it sit there, let it suspend like it's designed to do, then twitch it. They'll come farther to get it. Number 3 is the Alabama rig. Now again, the Alabama rig this time of year, nice slow presentation, school of bait fish. It's hard for the bass to resist it. Now with the Alabama rig this time of year, again, another one of the places, and you'll see this is kind of common between all the baits this time of year. You want steep banks or long points with a steep drop off on either side. And what I'm going to do with the Alabama rig most of the time is I'm going to cast it out, I'm going to let it sink, and I'm really going to reel it just nice and slowly back to the boat. Just really contouring that bluff. I'm going to stay, you know, up against the bluff nice and tight, and I'm just going to reel it back nice and slow. Every once in a while, putting in just a quick turn of the reel handle, but nice and slow. So number 2 on my list is tight lining. So this is about a 3/16 head made by Killer Bass Baits. It's specifically made for tight lining. And generally I use 2 baits. This is a Gulp minnow. I believe that's the 3-inch. The other bait that's popular on the tight line is this little hair jig. So you just use like a 3/16 weight and you let it pendulum back to you. So the first place again is going to be a bluff, and you want to be in nice and tight. And what you're going to do is you're going to make a nice little cast out. You're not going to let this touch the bottom. You're going to keep your rod tip at about a 10 to 11 o'clock, and you're just barely going to shake your rod tip. Now the thing about a rod on this, I like a very light rod, and you're fishing it on 4-pound test. So you got to have a reel that's got good drag. You're just reeling it in just so it doesn't touch the bottom, and that it pendulums back to you. Like I said, you want to stay nice and tight to your bluff, and you want to barely shake this. I like about a 7-foot medium light action rod for this technique. Again, you want to contour the bottom, just barely shake that rod tip, and you can see that rod tip, and I mean I am barely shaking it, is just really moving. So the other area that I'm going to target with the tight line is going to be 45-degree, a lot of times do nothing banks. So the other thing is 45-degree banks, and again, what you're going to do is you're just going to cast right out there, and you're going to let it pendulum back to the boat, keeping your rod at about 10 or 11 and just reeling it as it falls down that bank. You don't want it sitting on the bottom. If it's sitting on the bottom, you're not reeling fast enough. Again, you want it to pendulum back. You want to barely shake that rod tip. You don't want it on the bottom. You want it to pendulum back to the boat just above the surface of that 45-degree bank. Number 1, the damiki rig. So a damiki rig. A damiki rig, again, like the Swimbait, one of the areas that you're going to want to look for is a place where you have a flat and some creek channels running out. On the sides of those creek channels, a lot of time you're going to find some good schools. You're really going to look for your bait fish. That's going to be a key to the damiki rig. An area with large schools or large concentrations of bait fish, it's that area that's really going to pay off. Now with a damiki rig, again, all you do is drop this bait straight down under the boat. You're just dropping it straight by your trolling motor. You're finding fish on your graph, and you're just dropping it and hovering it above them. You're trying to keep it really still. Every once in a while you can give it a quick raise up to maybe get their attention, but other than that, you're just going to try and hold it perfectly still until it basically annoys the heck out of the bass. They come up and they eat it. But again, the areas that you're going to target with this are going to be, you know, creek channel areas or long tapering points. All right, so that's my top 5 baits. That's where to fish them at. If you have any questions about it, of course, leave them in the comment section below. Fishing in my area, winter fishing, the smallmouth tend to be the target species. They really group up during the winter time, and you've really got a good shot of catching some of the biggest smallmouth of the year and of your life. So if it's not froze over, guys, make sure you're getting out there, make sure you're going fishing. You won't catch a lot of numbers, but you will, and have some of the best shots of catching your new PB or the biggest fish of your life during these cold weather months. So as always, questions and comments in the comment section below. If you've got any questions on these 5 wintertime rigs, let me know. I'll answer them to the best of my ability. Like it if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe, and you guys rock.